always wanted to be a writer when I was a child. I was one of those kids that if they weren't reading a book, they were writing a book. That persisted all the way through till I was an undergraduate. But doing a literature degree kind of sort of squashed my creativity for a while. I was very intimidated by these wonderful books that I was reading, and I began to feel like there was no space for me. I couldn't pretend to write a novel compared with all these wonderful, great monuments that other people had created. And that lasted for quite a while, and I thought I would probably be an academic. I thought I would sort of have an academic engagement with writing. But I'm pursuing that. I moved to Northern Ireland, to Belfast, and it turned out I didn't know this when I went there, but it became apparent to me what a vibrant city it was, how full of writers, and I got to meet some of these people, and I got to realise that they were not so very different from me. You know, they were real living people, not you know, dead great men, and it just began to open up again. I began to have a sense that this was something that I might be able to do, and I did what a lot of people do, which is start by writing short stories and sending them out. And then I managed to get a little bit of attention from an agent who said, well, you really need to write a novel, because they always say there's no market for short stories, or they did then. And so I said, yes, of course. I'm sort of 6 months, you know, I'm halfway through writing one, which I wasn't. But I then had to just sort of get on and do so. So that's how I started writing again after a period. It seemed like a long time of not writing, but really the reality is it was only about 4 or 5 years when I wasn't writing. Other than that, I've just written all my life. I write every day that I possibly can. I get up, I get the kids to school, and then I write. And that means very often that the house can be in complete chaos. Sometimes I'll just walk away from the chaos and go and work in a cafe in town. There's a place where they don't mind me sitting for 3 or 4 hours over one coffee and just working away. So essentially I will just write when the children are at school, and when they get back, I try and be mum and be available as mum. It didn't used to be that easy until relatively recently. I also had a full-time job, and at that point I would work all day, see the kids in the evening, go to sleep, and then wake up at about 3 a.m. and then write through till about 7 a.m. when the kids got up, and then the day would start again. So I was in this constant state of jet lag. So I really appreciate actually the fact that I now have that kind of dedicated time, that chunk of time while the children are at school, where I can just get on with some writing. I tend to be quite sort of, in some ways mechanical, in the sense that I will work, you know, I will just sit down and work. There's no question of waiting for inspiration to strike. You just have to dive straight in. And this can mean sort of deciding that today I am going to write 2,000 words, or I'm going to edit 5 pages. It all depends on what stage of the book I'm at. Just keep at it, because I think a lot of it has to do with persistence, as well as talent. I think part of any kind of talent as a writer is also inherently about bloody-mindedness, about not giving up when people say no. And just keeping on with it, because, you know, it's a long, hard slog. It's a marathon, writing a novel, and you've got no one else is forcing you to do it. So you've really got to be very self-motivated. And I think just sort of finding that sort of the rhythm and the training, as it were, and the persistence of just doing it every day, even though nobody else cares whether you do or you don't.